house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. The genealogy of David. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When they came together, the Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. And the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without next of kin, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him in her bosom and became his nurse. The women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse, the father of David. So now these are the descendants of Perez. Perez became the father of Hezron, Hezron of Ram, Ram of Amminadab, Amminadab of Nahshon, Nahshon of Salmon, Salmon of Boaz, Boaz of Obed, Obed of Jesse, and Jesse of David. Word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God.
Okay, so there was the surprise ending for the book of Ruth, because the ending, the one that the last sentence was, where it kind of talks about Perez and the father of it and Boaz, that was put on later. The original ending simply said Ruth was the great-grandmother of King David. All that we've learned about Ruth and all of the things that kind of fit in, that Ruth was a foreigner. You see why this book would have been considered absolutely heretical. So let me go back a little bit, because there's more that gets enveloped in this whole story. There's more that gets put forward in this than sometimes we would even like to acknowledge. How many people here, I mean, it's kind of the new rage, but how many people here are part of Ancestry.com or something like it? You can admit to it. It's a cool thing. A lot of people are really into it. PBS has a whole TV series on who do you think you are, and people get to kind of go back into their history and find out all about it. It's a lot of fun, but at the same time, I would say be careful. Be careful with it as well, because first of all, not all of the information that comes rolling forward, but it is fun. I did Ancestry.com, and I did the whole DNA thing. And when my DNA thing came back, it said 15% finish. And I thought, what? Not finish? I am, see, this is kind of the way we think about ourselves. I am half Norwegian, because that's my mom's side, right? And I am half American. Kind of like everything else in the world that could be thrown together, because that's my dad's side. He called it hybrid vicar. But Dad also was kind of concerned because there's a certain kind of ethnic thing that happens. He said, how can it be that, you would think that my children would be 50% Norwegian and 50% me. He said, but somehow when they're born, they come out 100% Norwegian. I just don't understand this. Anyway, the whole thing popped up of 15% finish. And not only was the ethnicity thing, which is kind of yams, but all of a sudden, I had cousins, boom, 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 in Finland. And it was like, We had an urban myth in our family that my great-grandmother, Valborg, was not actually pure. That she came from an area called Finnskogen, the Finns forest, and that she was Finnish. Well, we looked at that, and I looked at that, and I went, oh, this is so cool. But 100 years ago, it was not cool. 100 years ago, to be from that area of Norway and to be Finnish was to be considered, kind of like from the wrong side of the tracks. And so Grandma Valborg, great-grandma Valborg, really kept quiet. And it was kind of, so things can be discovered. Now, I'd love to be able to tell great-grandma Walworth, "You're so cool, you're finished, thank you." But then, also somebody else, there's a man who was like the absolute rock star of Howell genealogy before all of this, internet stuff. He did it the hard way. He went to courthouses and census reports and worked tirelessly for 30, 40 years to be able to discover everything that he could about the Howells and where they came from. And I noticed that about 3 years ago, he kind of went quiet. And I thought, wow, what's going on? So I emailed him about a year ago and I said, "So Ben, what's up?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I took the ancestry DNA and it turns out that my dad was the neighbor." And not a Howell at all. He said, "It took me a year or so to kind of grapple with that fact and to kind of get my brain around it." He said, "And then all of a sudden I realized, you know what? My parents are really great. Because even though this happened in our past, they were willing to kind of step around it and over. And I was raised as part of the family, and my dad was really willing to kind of step forward and say, you know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're not going to make it a part of this family. We're not going to make you different. We're not going to make you something that..." And he said, it really, at first it kind of shook me up about who my parents were. And then all of a sudden I realized, no, they were actually really cool. First of all, my mom was a real human being, which is kind of a hard thing to accept sometimes, right? Because we kind of put our parents, or especially our moms, on this sainthood plane. And he said it was really wonderful. And not only that, he said, now I have a whole new family tree that I can work to discover. What I want us to do today is actually move outside the book of Ruth just a little bit, because it's not just a current fad to do this Ancestry.com thing. In fact, if you go to the second chapter of the book of Matthew, there's a genealogy there, a genealogy for Jesus. Luke does the same thing, but Matthew's is a lot more fun. Now, there's a lot of, they use the word begat. Begat, 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 begat. I remember being in a Bible study in Linden. And Linden is kind of, anybody here from Linden? Okay, say Linden's a little uptight. And I was in a Bible study with a bunch of other pastors from Linden. And we were actually looking at this, and one of the pastors said, wow, they sure did a lot of begatting back then. And this 80-year-old pastor said, it's because they didn't have television. But, so see, you realize, oh my goodness, these are human beings. What fun to realize they're human beings. If you go into the genealogy, who do you think you are, of Jesus, you would kind of expect perfection, wouldn't you? Because Jesus, in the way that we idealize him and in the way that we kind of put him forward, Jesus is perfect. Jesus is holy. And holy in our minds means somehow better or different or, whoa, up on a pedestal kind of a place. Go into the genealogy of Jesus and guess who you find? Ruth. You find Ruth. Because Ruth was the great-grandmother of David, and David was an ancestor of Jesus. See, even the way we put it in, our Christmas story, we always talk about Jesus was of the house and lineage of David. and we all kind of go, ooh, he was royalty. That's kind of what we want to expect, isn't it? It's kind of what we want to find when we go into Ancestry.com or any of those. Oh please, Lord, let me find out that I am the descendant of a duke, or a prince, or even better, a king. Because then somehow it makes me better, right? Oh Lord, please don't let me find out that I am the descendant of a horse thief, or a prostitute, or a peasant. But guess what you find out when you get into the genealogy of Jesus? He was the descendant of foreigners. Ruth. There's somebody else that shows up in his genealogy, a woman by the name of Tamar. Check her out in the Bible. A little bit shady when it comes to her morality. There's someone else's. There are four women named in Jesus' genealogy. Ruth, Tamar, Rahab. Does anybody know who Rahab was? Was she Jewish? No. She was Canaanite. She lived in Jericho. And guess what her profession was? Yeah. Oh, no. She is part of Jesus' genealogy. And another, the fourth woman in Jesus' genealogy was Bathsheba. Remember her? The lady that took a bath on her roof and King David was looking out over the city and went, whoa. And everything got messed up from that point on. You see, we want to find perfection because it makes us feel better about ourselves. And it's almost like God, through the Bible, is trying to tell us, will you just stop? Just stop. If you expected anyone to be perfect, it would have been Jesus. But check out who his ancestors were. And in many ways, it's not just that he rose above them. It's not that he rose above them. It's like he embraced them. And that's the difference. That's the difference. That all of a sudden we see Jesus living out a life where he doesn't just say, well, in spite of the fact that I was... Instead he says, these are my people. Guess what, folks? They're real. They're imperfect. They're tarnished. They are not holy in the classic sense of the word, but they are God's. That God does not want to create a holy people, holy thinking that you are better than everyone else, but instead whole, W-H-O-L, holy, a people that are embraced by all, a church, a mindset, an attitude, and a life where you can look out and simply celebrate the fact that we are all, the whole of us, embraced by God. The wonderful surprise to the ending of the book of Ruth is that her blood, her DNA, was running through Jesus. That she was part of his family. And that all of us, can simply take a step back and really try to think to ourselves, are we going to define this world and the people that we meet in this world by our own definitions, values, limitations? Some people are better than other people. Some are more valued than others. Some are more desired than others. Some have characteristics that we would rather have be part of. Or are we going to take a deep breath, open up our hearts and open up our lives, and start to approach this whole business as God does? Whole. Thank heaven we had a chance to study Ruth. Thank heaven God shakes us up a little bit and recognizes and helps us to recognize. But sometimes the best thing that can happen to us is for us to be shocked out of our own walls, limitations, restrictions, and into God's wide open vision of a feast of life. Amen.